here in the Benin Network Center, we'll quickly look at the shortfall in our IGR. Recently, the Deputy Governor had a meeting with some stakeholders, and he was actually expressing his displeasure over the shortfall in the revenue generated. 3 million naira, 18 local governments. How do we arrive to this? Well, to join me discuss this segment, a civil activist and, of course, someone that has been in the front line as far as politics in the state is concerned. From my right, immediate right, is our comrade Christopher Ojehewe. He's a civil activist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome. Morning, viewers.
Okay, and of course, from my left is Comrade Young Eleni Khena. He's a former Edo State NOLEG president. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
Okay, you are a former president of the National Union of Local Government Employees. 3 million naira, 18 local governments. The mathematics, does it put up?
Well, there are so many reasons why there may be the shortfall, because at this juncture, the beginning of the year, you expect the revenue to go up. But having a shortfall like that, a lot of things may have gone wrong. I think that is what the Deputy Governor is trying to draw the attention of the major stakeholders, which are the revenue people, to, that those shortfalls should be corrected. Most importantly, there is issues that are ongoing now that there may likely be a shortfall in the revenue for June and July. That would mean the workers may not have salaries. That is a cry of some state governors. And so the Deputy Governor, being the head of the revenue in Edo State, has to call on the stakeholders to highlight those areas where there are shortfalls and corrections be made. I think that is the right thing to do, to really draw their attention to it, and one will expect, if there are challenges, why those shortfalls or why those things are not moving forward. Those major stakeholders, they have several avenues to draw the attention of the government to it, to say, okay, these are some of the challenges that we have that is causing this shortfall in that revenue. I know they will correct it.
Okay, let's quickly come to Christopher Ojehewe. Looking at the shortfall, 3 million, 18 local governments. What's your take, quickly?
Well, I think the shortfall became an issue because it was unusual. And as my colleague said, if you have such an unusual situation, which is a deviation from the regular run of things, then there might be need to investigate what could be responsible for it. Because revenue sources for local government areas have not dwindled. Shops have not closed. And all other sources of revenue have not collapsed. But what has happened to the revenue that have been coming from those places regularly in the past? So there is a need to investigate. And then there is also a need for the major stakeholders who are involved to come up with it. Now, I remember that in 2017, the governor told us in Edo State how through automation of the system, he has been able to jack up our IGR. I think then the figures were from about 30 million annually to about 150 million annually. And what we'd expect, because since then there have been a lot of growth in the economy in terms of business growth and all of that, what we would expect is that the revenue will continue to soar in that direction. So that we cannot really sit down here and understand why local governments within that period will produce only 3 million naira. Something very much is wrong somewhere and needs to be investigated.
Okay, talking about investigation, Comrade Young, who should be held responsible? Because someone needs to go for this.
Well, I think what comes to my mind first now as one of the reasons why we may experience that shortfall, because we all live in the city here. And during this electioneering campaign, the zeal to go for this revenue as we do before drops. Why? Because if you go to one shop, they will say one political party is using you. And so even if you go to Ring Road, the law enforcement in the revenue, they sort of slow down because there will be political meaning read to it. So these are some of the reasons. But as to who to be responsible or held responsible for the shortfall, I think for now, let us see if the political campaign, electionary campaign, has an effect on it, because it's unusual. Right from 2017, when the law was made in Edo State here for revenue, there have never been a fall like that. So me, personally, I will look at that electionary campaign being one of the major reasons, because we know how will I call it now, so explosive this last election was. And so those who are revenue collectors, they will not want to be caught in between one political party or the other. So I think that may be one of the major reasons. But I do hope, by God's will, before we call for investigation, let's see what this month, May, will bring. Then if the month of May repeats itself, then one can call for investigation. Okay, if there's a repetition after this month. Yeah, because to me, I ascribed it to the election. Okay, he's ascribing it to the election. What are you tying it to?
Well, revenue collection is a policy. It's a policy of government. And that policy must not be subject. It's a civic responsibility of citizens to pay taxes and to pay rates to government for development. And the revenue collectors are agents of government, of the local government. They are supposed to have a system of accountability, a system of transparency that gives everyone and anyone who wants to look into the books to see what's in the book. They're also supposed to find what you call dividend of those taxes that they are paying in their local government areas. And then they will understand that the taxes they are paying are being used in their local government areas, so that they become acculturated to paying taxes. Therefore, it should not be affected. I am not saying it was not affected. I'm saying it should not be affected by whatever is going on, because revenue generation is a developmental instrument that government must use. Because if government doesn't generate revenue, government cannot bring about development. The people must be trained to understand that. They must be trained to understand that you shouldn't use revenue as a cudgel of blackmail, because it's election time. And you begin to blackmail government and say, look, if you collect revenue from us, we'll vote for the other party. People shouldn't use that as a cudgel. The citizens must understand that they have civic responsibilities towards contributing to development. And the only way they can do that is to pay their taxes, to pay their revenues. So if that was the case, which is not unlikely, then citizens must be reoriented to understand that we have to pay our revenues. Now, I also think that another reason could be that the new men in the helms of affair might not have had a handle on what's going on, what's been going on. So it was possible for them to be, so to speak, short-changed, manipulated. And so there might have been in the system, those who are now at the helm of affairs. You understand? They may not have learned the ropes quick enough to be able to have a handle of what was going on. So all of that are issues that could come up if there will be investigation. I do agree that we give them another, 1 month to see whether there will be, a curve, and they will be able to understand that, it could be attributed to that reason. And if we continue to have increment from there, then it might let go, but it might be let go. But if we have such a repeat, then it means that we have to really do thorough investigation to understand why we came about that shortfall. If there's shortfall in the revenue generated, salaries cannot be paid. Yes. Some things cannot be fixed. Yes. The state government actually depend on the IGR to ensure that the state is being run smoothly. Yes. Sure. But some people have the opinion that if we have democratically elected local government officials running the affairs of local government, to an extent it will curb some of these irregularities. Do you share the same thoughts? Not quite. Though I'm not subscribing to not having elected local government chairman, but that won't make any difference. Like he said, we have a law on revenue.
And that law is not subject to whether you have a local government elected chairman or not. It's a law in place. And I want to give it to this present administration, because ever since the local government has been crying, let there be a law, give them the power to collect the revenue that they are supposed to. But I think this is the only administration that I've ever taken it serious. I think that is why in January 1st, 2017, the governor made a pronouncement that it is only government officials that can collect revenue. Those other contractors who were now collecting on behalf of the government, they were let go. And so right from that time till now, there have been a steady and increase in revenue. But I do believe that we will have an elected chairman in various local government councils very soon, because I know the machineries is in place already. But they will not make much difference because they are politicians. And when they come in, they have their own game they play. Okay. So I think that wouldn't make much difference at all, because the best time to really raise the revenue is when you have the civil servant in the helm of affairs as far as revenue is concerned. Okay. But that won't make much difference, though, because they have their own influence, they have their take, they have their luggages they carry along, and they will want to patronize one of their pegs or not. So, but I do hope this will be a better time. Like I said earlier, I think we'll give them just this month of May and see whether the graph will go up. But if not, then questions will be raised.
Okay, he's of the opinion, as you're still maintaining your status quo of giving them time.
Sure.
But do you share the same opinion with him?
Yes, I do, quite well.
Apart from giving them time, having democratically elected people in office, will it make any difference? No,
it won't make any difference. In fact, if anything, it might even worsen the situation.
Sure.
You see, if you want to ask me on that, it might not be a topic for today. I believe in local government administration, not local government as a third tier of government. Okay. Our constitution has a lot of confusion it has created by this third tier of government. All over the world, in Britain, in America, what you have is local government administration. And that's what we should have. And to some semblance of comparison, that's what you have in place right now. Local government administration headed by bureaucrats, and then a liaison officer that has been appointed to oversee that bureaucracy. Now, there is no reason now to give why revenue is falling. Because if you have those elected into office, as he said, first of all, they come in with their retinue of aides. They have to take care of them. Political overlords within the local government who influence their elections, they have to take care of them. And then a lot of other perks, which are entitlements that Nigerian politicians have taken upon themselves. We all come in here as a right because they are elected. They will tell you they are elected members. So, and that's why we have such costly government in Nigeria. As I said, I don't want to go into all that. So, all of that is going to be on this thin revenue. So, that it will not make any difference to revenue generation and revenue, accruals to the state coffers or to the joint coffers.
But there's no way we cannot do without bad eggs. There is no way we cannot do without those who might want to enrich themselves from the system. Don't you think this could be another major issue hampering the increment in the revenue generated?
Well, the structure, if there is a structure and enforcement, we have a law, and that law is very strong. And again, you see some overlapping their functions. For instance, now the billboard in the local government, the billboard and advert is the function of the local government. And that yields a lot of revenue to local government. You see billboard everywhere. You are supposed to pay. But you find the Board of Internal Revenue wanting to say, no, it's our own function. You want to see the other group again saying, no, it's our own function. You want to see the politicians setting up agencies to do that one, whereas the law is saying it is the function of the local government council. And if they are allowed to collect those revenues, for instance, now like kiosks and shop, the Board of Internal Revenue is stretching their legs to it. So you see this conflict in implementation of the laws. And because of this conflict now, role conflict, I would say, you discover that the Board of Internal Revenue is coming there, the local government is coming there, and other agencies set up by politicians, they are equally coming there.
Just on the same
And so, but we have a law that is saying local government, they are the one that is due to collect those revenues. If that is really implemented properly according to the law, I think local government, they are good to go for self-administration without even calling for any external revenue.
Okay, Comrade Young, we'll quickly take a short break now, and of course, we'll continue after this time out. Don't go nowhere. All right, while we went on that break, we have been joined by Comrade Collins Amadi. Collins Amadi is a political activist, and of course, he's joining us live here in Benin Network Center. Good morning, Collins.
Thank you, DPO. Good morning. Good morning, viewers. I'm sorry for coming a little bit behind schedule.
All right. It's okay. Let's just quickly continue. You had the floor before we had Collins Amadi join us. You're still telling us that we should still give them time, and you actually made a point. I would like you to just sum it up before we go on.
Well, like I said earlier, the system will work if the implementation is done right. There are enabling, if the enabling environment is created, like I said, there is always a role conflict as far as the revenue is concerned. That was what the governor did initially to ensure that everyone is playing their role. But recently, we begin to envisage or experience an overlap in some of the functions. I think if those things are corrected, it will help to ginger up the revenue for the state. Like I mentioned before, the billboard advert is for the local government. But you discover some agencies are cropping in to say, that Ministry of Environment, they are in charge and all the rest. You see this kiosk and shop, the Board of Internal Revenue is coming in. No. It is not supposed to be so. There is a law, and the law stated clearly that it is the function of the local government. They have not failed. We have not failed in the local government system, because since 2017, when the law came into effect, there have never been a complaint like this. But like I mentioned earlier, or I submitted earlier, that it is due to this political electioneering campaign we just went through. And I strongly believe if by the end of this month, we still have a repeat of what happened last month, then there is a need for investigation. But for now, to me, I think let us try and grease our wheels and see how the movement will be.
Okay, Christopher Ojekere, to an extent, some people feel that there are big wigs that actually benefit from this income, from this revenue. There are big wigs. By the time this money is being collected from the pool, before it gets to the end point, there are big wigs who, in quotes, serve as godfathers or overseers on their own that have direct access to this cash. Now, how do we start fishing out these people so that we can have a clean system?
Well, one of the unfortunate things about our modern society in Nigeria is that speculation sometimes comes to stand as facts.
That's true.
And then you see people begin to ask you questions on how to deal with speculations. There is an automated system of local government revenue generation and collection in Edo State. There's an enabling law backing local government collection. There are institutions identified by government to collect revenue in Edo State. So at which point of this intersection do you now have which big men collecting hijacking revenue? If there's any corruption, it is going to be within this system that is set up so that it will be easy to track. It is the same institutions that will be able to tell us how and what, if there was leakages, how and where there are these leakages. So we have people we can hold responsible and say, you have been given this responsibility. Why do we have this? And that's why the deputy governor wasn't talking about bigwigs. He was talking to the stakeholders when he addressed them. So that matter of bigwigs is in the realm of speculations. What we have is a system, and that's what we've been trying to build. There should be a system understood by the citizens. You should be able to tell where the cover you are giving, the tracking, and where it's ending as citizens. That education is necessary. That's the work of civil society. That's the work of everyone that is involved. He was talking about conflicting or multiple taxes. Now, that is the point I was trying to make when I told you that the Constitution has a lot of role that it has played or misplayed or displayed, so to speak. The Constitution empowers the local government area to be in charge of billboards. It does, the same Constitution empowers state governments to have an internal board of revenue board. Now, both laws are empowering these two tiers of government to generate funds internally. And they are going for the same targets. They are going to the same place to generate the same funds. I mean, to generate different funds for the two tiers of government. It's a constitutional aberration. What we need to do is to delineate very clearly. If we are going to have local government to stand, there needs to be a constitutional review that will delineate very clearly what are the areas and purviews of local government administration, internal generation of funds, or areas of operation. That's what is done in Britain. The Secretary of State gives the county, you know your delineation. He gives the district, you know your delineation. So there is no conflict. As long as we leave it amorphous like there will continually be conflict. There's conflict between the federal government. The federal government says he wants to pay salaries of teachers in my village. So the federal government is running the local government in my village in a federalism. That's Unitarianism. That's a unitary system of government. The federal government is not supposed to be running the primary school in my village. That is supposed to be run under my state government. Because in a federation, the federating units of a federation is the state. Because the state controls the territorial integrity of the ethnicity that is the component part of that federal government. So you cannot from federal run my primary school, because my primary school education policy is supposed to be formulated according to the cultural bias of my ethnic extraction. These are the issues you have. So with this kind of issues, you continue to have this kind of problems. And then you begin to talk about because it's the same woman who's running a kiosk, for instance, in New Benin, and you come and say you are local government, and the other one comes and say internal board of this thing, and the other one comes and he says is this, and the other one comes and he says is this, can only see one thing, and that is that the government of the day is oppressive, and the government of the day wants to emasculate her out of business. And therefore, you cannot get the buy-in, that citizen sense of responsibility. You can't get it because if you feel oppressed.
Okay. Now,
so these are the issues.
Let's quickly come to College Samadi. Duplication of duties seems to be one of the issues we're having here. Is there any way we can come out of these duplicated authorities?
Thank you very much. The law is not ambiguous. The Local Government Act and even the Revenue Act itself that gave the power and authority to both federal, states, and local government to generate revenue had since long stipulated areas where concerns you. We know area that concerns local government. If state government are not being unfair, if the way state government have handled local government, if federal government have handled them like that, they would have since run to courts. There are a lot of cases in many states before now where even local government, because when you don't have your autonomy, when you don't have your liberty as stipulated by the law, when people uses that virtue they have to oppress people, these are what you get. Ordinarily, no one federal government will invade Edo State now or Lagos State and query them for generating a limited revenue, for example, quote and unquote, because it's your own body. If you get less, it is left for you and your people who have asked you to administer. But in a situation where civil servants have been made to take charge, ordinarily, when the law does not empower them, because the word liaison officers are strange to us, for example, so we still don't want to assume that anybody is there. We just want to assume that he's the friend of local government that is sitting close to them, because it's not known by law. Otherwise, if we had had an elected local government official, I do not think they will be this openly disgraced the way they were by His Excellency the Deputy Governor of the state. To me, it was an aberration to have called them to public and give them that public disgrace. And even tell them that some things will be placed that their children will see how probably they operated, and they'll be handed over to EFCC and all of it. That's a direct indictment. It's only that we're in a banana system where people don't honorably resign. If I were those who were even made to be head of the local government, as it were, I will excuse myself and prepare a clean sheet of how I administer from the day I was given the mandate to do so. Now, what are we talking about? If you want to get the revenue of local government of what they have earned, should we be asking one man who is not a local government official, as it were? You now ask one revenue friend of the government and say, how much did you generate, for example? And the man says, I generated, or we generated 3 million naira. And you are now using that one to preempt the entire local government officials that the 18 local government made 3 million. Who is fooling who? Because there is no way 18 local government, even if they chooses to sit down in their houses and not even go for enforcement, people genuinely pay tax. There is no way you will even make 3 million naira as an IGR from the 18 local government. Okay. So we must, even as leaders, they must learn to sit down, calculate before talking, so we will not create problem for ourselves and for people around us. Why have I not said that? For example, if road transport worker, a particular section of it, had said they made 3 million, and we know that even the way they collect revenue as it concerns transport union, for example, they share it into 4 parts. Road transport takes there, local government takes there, state takes there, which other one again take there? That made it 4 different.
Did you independently verify this information you're giving us?
Of course, you can go to local government agencies and ask them, those in authority. Yes, and I'm telling you, the 3 million that was quoted probably was the one that was said by one of the arranged group at the one I have just said now. That's 3 million, probably that was what got from them. If the state government want to really verify and know what their people earn or what the government earns, they should verify from the state board of internal revenue. Okay. Because the state board of internal revenue have won the agbada just as I have won now, and pour local government people inside and collect and assume whatever they feel like, they dashes them, they give to them. How can a state government, for example, be invading markets and collecting revenue? What business do they have there? What business do they have there? Now, how can they be invading local government marriage registry and say you pay into one account? What right do they have to say let's be paying into one account after which we divide? No. They are autonomous. They should make their own and use it the way they want it. Okay, Comrade, for the benefit of the people.
It seems you have a different view. Comrade Young, you were just looking at him and your facial expression is telling me you are not really in tune with what Amadi is saying. You have a different view.
Well, I think there are some areas I will differ.
Okay.
One, the local government, for instance, the figure he's quoting now, 3 million. I quite agree that the local government did not generate, the 18 of them did not generate 3 million.
3 million, okay.
Based on several reasons and variables that we have in place when I left the service, we cannot generate 3 million. That is one. A figure may have been quoted from one of those outside the local government system. And that figure was now used on the major stakeholders. Because I know definitely no local government, the 18 of them cannot generate 3 million in a month. It's not realistic. Okay. What may have gone wrong is this. There's a mix-up of figures. Mix-up in the sense that one of those beneficiaries, like he said, of those revenue, because we have, to my knowledge, before I left the service, we have 3 parties to it. The state government, the local government, and the road transport workers have their own share. The percentage I cannot really give now, but I know they have percentages of sharing. Okay. Now, 2, there is no in-between where the revenue will be collected, somebody will be siphoning it somewhere because of the system in place. How? It is automated. And so once the money is given, you no longer handle it. You are no longer in control of it. Like I mentioned earlier, the election may have affected it. Okay. But the figure 3 million is not realistic. Okay. It may have been one of the agents who may have gotten that as their own and quoted it to the government. My colleagues in the system cannot generate 3 million in the 18 local government for 1 month.
It's impossible. Okay, now, we gathered that because of the elections, they were asked to reduce the revenue they were collecting. So how would they now meet up with the target?
You gathered that from whom?
Yes.
No, they didn't ask them not to.
Eh?
From what you are even saying, you are even speculating that the election may be the reason. Yeah. And from information reaching us that...
It's giving an opinion.
Yes.
That
of course,
it may have affected
if there's this shortfall, which was publicly explained, in fact, the deputy governor went on to say EDO brought 1 million.
That was what he said when he...
And the other 2 million was from the others.
So if they are now...
excuse me.
Okay.
When you are in a public domain, you use the statistics that is available to you. Okay. Every other thing is in the realm of speculations. Are you following me? So you be careful the things you say. Now, there is a subsisting local government law which provides for a joint account. It's called Joint Local Government and State Account. Okay. That law makes it possible for every money collected to go into that joint account from which it is shared. So the state government is not emasculating. That's the law. It is the law. It is the joint account. Okay. And that's why local governments have been fighting for autonomy. Autonomy means that they want to have their own account. So they have what we call first line charge from the federal government. So you operate within the ambit, yes, of the law. Within the ambit of the law. And there is no law in existence that can bar a state from developing policies of generating revenue within the state. So you have the law. There is no illegality here. What is wrong should be wrong with the law. And so you begin to talk about amending it. So that's on that. Now, as for the figure, I can't sit here and say maybe somebody said or maybe somebody didn't say. The reason why it's an issue now is because of the fact that it was unusual. And that's what we said here. And because it was unusual, it was terribly unusual. It was counterproductively unusual. And that's why we are and that's the first time we are having such shortfall. Okay. And that's why I suggested earlier that there should be an investigation. Because it's an automated system. So whatever is behind the scene, it's not my business. I discuss what is on the table and what I can prove. Okay. You understand that? So the point is, I don't know why you had that shortfall, but there was a shortfall. And that's why it's an issue that we are discussing right now. And
we need to get a solution. Now, yes. Comrade Amadi, looking at the shortfalls and the meeting the Deputy Governor had with the stakeholders, do you think we should expect positive outcome next time?
Of course, they have not always done badly. Just as my leader here stated before. You know, this circumference of leadership and also of followers have over the time become a norm. Why did I say that? Close to an election, and if to an election, there are so many waivers. Then after election, you can't just jump in.
Waiver now.
Yes, like what he said. Sometimes you have some state friends, powerful actors, as it were, who may even be owing as a way of either owing revenue or have issues maybe in the court because maybe they have not paid or they ought to pay. You can see them having that clean sheet of waiver. And these are money most times. You know, this revenue thing sometimes doesn't just come as what you incur that very month. Sometimes people have backlog. When they pay their backlog, they count it to what comes in. It also becomes something. The ones who do not owe backlog last 2 months may start owing the other one, and things like that. And you also find out that close to election, like even the transporters, for example, you will find out that the people who collect revenue from drivers and what have you, shops, markets, a week to 2 weeks to, they will all be excused. Last month, X month, what have you, they told people when you park wrongly, 3 weeks, a month to election, they excuse them. All the revenue they collect from all these quarters are all denied because people will continue to be defaulting over the time. So when you now expect to get magic too, it's also a problem. I have not said there wasn't a first shot. There was. But to say it was 3 million, that was where my issue had come from. Now, all of this you must put, there are variables you must put together before attacking, for example. But let's say because local government election is already underway, there must be a way to excuse these people, but we don't need to excuse them by way of indictment. Because I was very happy and excited when His Excellency stated to them that they will be handed over to EFCC to check their books. Because what comes for A will certainly come for C. They will also hand over soon. I am happy that he has set the pace that EFCC too will also check their books, because all of them were meant to lead and what? To deliver good governance for the people.
Just to put them on their feet to work.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's in return, he has also put them to, as State Executive Council, to also work harder and also be checking their own papers, because there will also be a time that every paper must be checked. Even if it's your friend that is there is a day your friend will not be there, your paper must be checked. So in all share, things can change.
Okay.
Things can change by way of strong institution. Strong institution that is not well too interfered with political arrangements.
All right, let's start getting solution. That's the reason why we are
yes, that is what I'm saying. When we have a strong institution, the strong institution doesn't know whether there is election or there is no election.
Okay.
If government want to say, oh, because it's not compulsory if you collect 2 million naira monthly as IGR from this company today, that next month you will collect. Ordinarily, you check what comes in and what goes out. If they had lesser profit, you should also collect lesser. If they are improving, you collect higher. That's how it's supposed to be. But only in Nigeria that is static. To an extent, the next thing is upward, upward, upward. They don't have review. Their own is only upward in Nigeria system. Otherwise, for the fact that you collect 10 million naira from a company today, doesn't mean you collect 10 million. You can collect 10 million naira this month and collect 2 million naira the following month, owing to what is happening. So what I'm trying to say is not share. Let political arrangement not take preeminence in what we do. If it does, we'll be having issues like this. Otherwise, even when there are supposed to be a shortfall, it's supposed to be within a minimum of easy understanding. I don't know if you understand. If there's no political tone to the indictment, there's supposed to be easy understanding that, okay, for this reason, it happened like this. So if people who are asked to also take charge of things are taking charge. For example, let me also tell you, even the state government, even if they want to hand over them to EFCC or what have you, if these local government administrators, as it were, also know themselves, they can file a counter affidavit to say, in short, the law does not even empower them to be in charge. So whoever that says they are in charge have come with illegality. So you can't even check them, because the law does not empower them to be holding that office that they gave to them. So how can you be charging me for what I'm legally not allowed to manage?
Okay. All right, Amadi, we'll come back to you. But if things are put in place, Comrade Young, don't you think generating revenue will be easier? If we have good roads, if there's enough light supply, there are so many reasons why people don't really pay their taxes. And some of these reasons because they don't get dividends of why they have people in government. Do you think if some of these basic amenities are put in place, it will jack up the revenue of the state?
Well, the issue of revenue is not an easy task. Because when you ask somebody pay tax, he won't be smiling in paying it. The first thing we'll do is to take care of the structure. Let local government have their autonomy.
Okay.
If local government have their autonomy, this discussion will not be there. Because you now hold somebody responsible in that local government. Either you call him a mayor or you call him chairman of council, you hold him responsible. But in a situation where they have a supervisor who has his own political network, you have a problem. That is what we're having across the country. So it's not just only Edo State. Two, the revenue allocation given to each state. Like my colleague said, you know, we have JAC, Joint Accounting System, we have here in the system, is by law. So until they have autonomy, that law cannot be set aside. So they must operate it. But what we are saying is that in the course of that law, because there is a law, I agree with him, but there is a clause in that law which is not being implemented. And that clause is whatever the state generates, add it to that JAC account before sharing. But what we have in system is that they will bring in that JAC, the one the state generates is not added to it and sharing it equally among them. That is one problem. But if we have autonomy, that will be taken care of. But like I strongly opine that one, if we, this month of May, the revenue still remain at that level, there is a need to raise question. The deputy governor talking of one threat or the other is just to make them sit tight.
Okay.
I know him, yes, I know him very well.
Okay.
He won't go to that extent because one, in essence, this administration is one of the workers-friendly administration you can never imagine as far as the history is concerned of Edo State. I've worked with the government for 35 years. Okay. So I know it. I know how they operate. When it comes to worker-friendly, this is the best administration we have. But however, the deputy governor making that, it's not that he's going to jail them, no. He just wants them to sit tight and do what they were supposed to do. Like I mentioned, there are some things that may have affected it, the election, okay, which we all know. And we know some of the reasons. But however, let's watch for the month of May.
Okay, Christopher Ojekere, let's quickly get solutions. What's the way out?
Now, first of all, if you have a system that has been working, and then you just have an infraction, that is not enough for you to jettison the system that has been working. Okay. You investigate why you had that infraction, and then you give a second chance, just as it's been saying. Second, I stand strongly for local government autonomy, but an autonomy that must come in its composition with an M and E component. People just talk about autonomy. We have had times when local government administration have been more or less autonomous. In the military times, and shortly after in the early democracies of 1979 to 1999, and even in the early 1999s. Now, what did we find? We find that the greatest seat of corruption we had in the country were the local government offices. Local government chairman becoming fief, and then building political capital around themselves, and then dishing out contracts and running that fief, because there was no M and E component. The joint account was supposed to be a kind of an M and E component, that's monetary and evaluation, so that the State House of Assembly and the government can put a check on what is going on in the local government. So if we are going to have an autonomy, we must reinforce and bring in more measures to check how local government operate. If we are going to have a government, I personally do not subscribe to local government as a third tier of government, but as administrative units. And being administrative units, it is the state that should create those units according to how it wants to administrate the state. That's what it is in federalism. And then they are given specific roles and specific templates upon which to operate. So that's my own personal opinion on local government administration. But if the country now says we want to have a third tier of government that should have autonomy, we must build in checks and balances. Just as you have checks and balances in the federal, checks and balances in the state, you must have a check and balance system that would help us check how, because if you are going to become a government that wants autonomy, how far do you have an autonomy when you are going to be funded from the money generated from the states? Is that autonomy? Autonomy would mean that you are allowed to look within your territory for resources and generate your own revenue to meet your own needs. That's autonomy. The states in Nigeria today don't even have autonomy as they should have, and that's why we're talking about restructuring. So when he said just now that the federal government cannot breathe down the state on how much it's generating, there are many ways the federal government breathe down the state. For instance, until recently we generate electricity here, you must take it to the national grid, and the national grid will refeed you back. Are you following me? That's a way of process. Yes. So you say you have a commissioner of police, and the governor cannot give order to the commissioner of police. So there are many checks and strangleholds of the federal over the states. And when we come to local government, we say, why is the state doing this? Why is the state doing that? It is the faulty system. If we are going to have true federalism and restructuring of various governments, then it also comes with responsibility. I cannot be paying you, and then you say you have autonomy. The money the local government is asking for is from the same federation account. That when we generate money in the state, where the entire state is affected, and it's taken to Abuja, then they will take the money and give to you and you say you have autonomy. That's not autonomy. Autonomy should come with responsibilities. You generate money, you control the resources within the local government area, and you create wealth. Not just the rentier system will be operating. So all of these are structural problems, the way it is. For the way it is right now for me, to manage it is that we must continue to keep that supervisory role over the local government areas.
Okay, Colin Samadi, quickly, let's take your reaction way out, because we'll start talking about the local government election that is just around the corner. So let's take your final reaction.
The way out for the IGR?
Yes.
Yes, there must be, since we have refused to even have our self-autonomy, because unfortunately, when we have elected local government officials and houses of assembly members who ordinarily should facilitate the autonomy of themselves and the other tier of government, which is the local government, they vehemently on their own because the governors had said, and they choose to be subservient. And in a situation where a servant wants to remain a servant, then who would you be to say have your liberty? So not until we have people who have courage and courage by way of male leadership at the center, who would then, by way of infusing it, forcing it, making that constitutional act being implemented. But we have completely seizing all the revenue, not to be shared anywhere. If a state government is starved of its allocation for 3 months, I am sure they will come to their senses by saying, give me my own, give them their own, and let everybody move on. Now I think we are going there with the renewed hope that is coming, because we are going to have a very shocking system of administration that many will never have imagined. I believe in this, and I am sure, because even them, for example, the president-elect, having been a governor, believed in local government administration by action and by inaction while he was a governor, by believing that we need more local government, they need more independent, they need more to generate revenue, where you were seeing local government in Lagos then discharging their responsibility as if they were governors, as it were. So I believe that that over time yearning of our people will come, and it must come from the head, because no matter how you do it, that was why we have states who didn't conduct local government for 4 years, 6 years, even when they were governors, and some of them today were still parading themselves that they want to be president. So what I'm trying to say is that when you don't believe in another, you cannot automatically want to make magic. Now the local government officials, even if you elect local government, constitutionally elected local government now, they still don't have what to say, because their voice will not be heard more than the customary court or one or the court. From there, the states who are superpower will take it from there. What you need now is a federal government who, by way of action and oversight, will infuse full implementation of what is supposed to be. That then, my brother, will not enjoy what he had just said, through autonomy, where people can enjoy themselves and people can account.
And you think
people can account to those who elect them. Not accounting to state government. But by then, your people at the local government level, you begin to account to them. You will tell them what you make internally, ensure that we even join you. Councillors will begin to function.
We'll come back to you, Colin Samadi. Let's quickly look at the local government election. Political party are already selling their forms. What should we expect, Comrade Young?
Well, I expect the interest of the voters to be high this time. And it depends on the civil society, how far we enlighten our people. Because the apathy in our people, because of one thing or the other that was not done correctly, definitely will affect the election again. But I do hope, seeing the situation around, everyone getting involved, the youth getting involved, the civil society getting involved, I think this time we're going to have a dawn of a new day as far as the local government is concerned. And again, time has been given for everyone who is interested and political parties to sell their forms. And I do hope the votes of our people will count. And if it counts, we are in for a good day.
Okay, before 2023 general election, the presidential election, we saw the momentum, we saw how people put in their effort to ensure that they come out in mass to vote. But after the presidential election, there seems to be decline, where we had the rerun and the other election that actually took place after the 25th February election. Are we going to see voter apathy play out in the local government election?
You certainly would see, because the feeling of autonomy that followed in the wake of the presidential election or after the presidential election has not abated at all. As a civil society worker and activist on the way, we have had reasons to engage after the elections. And market women have told us to our faces that votes don't count in Nigeria. Many have sworn that they will never vote again. Some were aggressive in trying to convince them. So that apathy is not going to go away anytime soon. It is going to linger on until September, and then, till we have the local government elections. So, but those people who are stakeholders must not rest in trying to enlighten our people that the best way ever forward is democracy. And that means that you go and exercise your franchise. That is the best we can do to begin to fight that apathy. It is the first election we have seen where a president-elect has been elected and nobody feels elected. No, the autonomy has continued since after the election. Nigerians have never been so resilient and inexorable in resisting something that has... What we usually do is after 1 or 2 weeks, we give up. But there is the resistance. Nobody feels that an election has really been done. So I should call to the conscience right now, the president-elect, because he mentioned it, that he should really sit down and ask himself whether people are happy and satisfied with that election. And if not, why? Yar'Adua in 2007 passed through a similar thing, but not as intense as this. And when Yar'Adua came in, he honestly told Nigerians that I admit that the election that brought me was flawed. Are you following me? Yeah. And then Nigerians forgave him for that honesty and integrity. This bravado that nobody on the streets that you meet said they voted for you, and yet you continue to brag that you won the election. If you conduct an opinion poll here of those who voted, out of 10, it's only 1 or 2. And which will be Amadi and then one of his colleagues that will say we voted for him. So what we expect is that you begin to assuage the minds of the people. Anyway, the case is a court, so the court will eventually decide that. But people have their own sense of patriotism when they are motivated towards what they think their conscience, their conscience have been served as a result of the franchise that they delivered. And if not, it will continue to affect subsequent elections. I wouldn't want to be a president-elect whose election has negative effect on subsequent elections in the country. That is not a democratic progression.
I mean, yes, in fact, Amadi, I know you want to respond to that, but just to let you know that this is the first time we are having an election where the winners are protesting.
Winners are protesting?
Yes, we saw some people from the APC protesting in Abuja that the election has come and gone. People should accept the result and congratulate the president-elect. Now, we've never seen it like that. Though we're actually x-raying the Edo State election.
Let me tell you, over the time we have had election, but when you have desperado parading some persons as a camouflage, you know this politics. In politics, nothing is hidden. We who are the players, like my brother here, by God's grace, he was former senior special assistant to the governor. Probably they just dissolved them a few days ago. Now he is speaking on the light of PDP. Also on the light.
He's speaking as an individual.
I am commissar now. He has interest. He's a party man. I'm a party man. I am also a civil society man. That has been our breath. That was our growth. But however, from there, we metaphors into also having an interest in politics and also wanting to be part of it. So even at that interest and that element must be there in us, because Aristotle has said, all of us had that political animality in us. But to move forward, now you thought about voting apathy. After presidential election, no one came out. But after presidential election, we had an House of Assembly election where people came out en masse, probably, if you'd agree, and some candidates had bogus numbers of votes they used in winning, sadly those who needed to save themselves. And where did that vote come from? I am coming. Where did that vote come from? It came from people, or they figured it out? Because I'm sure that was not so Tinubu's election. And then you went further for supplementaries. We had a Labour candidate in EDO, for example, who was leading with over 5,000 votes, as you may say, just to have a rerun in one ward. In one ward, have you ever had that? In an election where you and I agreeably say people didn't come out. A rerun, supplementary, and yet only one party swing all on the vote more than the registered voter number in that ward. And are you telling me it was Tinubu's election? Oga, when you have too many thieves at the same time, you go to a company, you steal and you throw it from the fence. And another armed robber in the next compound sees that they are stealing from that company and threw it. He quickly run there and pick it. Before you come, you are not seeing it there. You call another man armed robber. Oga, this is Nigeria. We want a better society.
Speak to the issue.
We want a better society, as it were. Let's not continually indict people. Now you said, for example, people are protesting. That means there are still people who had the feelings that they voted and that their votes must be well defended too. You cannot come and intimidate us and want to take authority.
But it's in the public domain.
In the public domain, that's what I'm saying. I agreeably agree with you. Okay. Because those are in solidarity. These are people who said, if you did not vote for this man, I voted for this man. And you cannot be master in Sokoto and you also be master in Kaduna. For the fact that you agree that people love you in Inewi does not mean people love you in Kafasha. So what makes you feel you are all out? What have you done? Have you granted scholarship to people that they be enjoying free education, as it were? Have you been feeding the needy? Have you ever opened any portal where people assess you and benefit from you? No, now. Let's call the space here. Is just something, are you an MK Abiola who at a time were feeding people? So what makes you feel, even MK who fed people, claim he won and declared himself, and at the end of the day find himself in jail? Okay, you must work with law and authority. Okay, like 2 days ago now, somebody says, I want to obey the law, I'm obeying the law. You are leaving the country to go and be looking for legal luminary everywhere. Yet to say you don't have money. Yes, agreeably, maybe from the money you donated from the poor people that you play smart on. Now, because there is tension, why did you not hear tension from the article who took second, as it were? Because he knows the game. He knows that even if you want to spoil, it may return back to all of us. Diplomatically, let's do things the way it's supposed to be. But because Obasanjo and few others believe that all the wrongs that they have written on the face of Nigeria may be investigated, and the only man that will investigate it is likely this man, and the Nigerian farm that became an personal farm to him may be revisited. So you see, with all form of desperado, I am coming, sir. It's my statement, not for ITV. Okay. And with all form of desperado,
okay, I would like you to make it brief now.
Good. With all form of desperado, they are trying to use some people to create chaos. Okay. And unfortunately, do you know why? When you have a smarter chairman, the other one who assumes is smarter is learning.
Okay.
Do you know why they are learning? Because anything you know that he knows more than you.
Okay.
If it is to mobilize people out, like you saw people sharing circular since 4 days ago, asking people to pack to Abuja, to come to tribunal, to come and protest, and make the judges know that they are ready. Oh God, Amadi, you are not only ready, others are also ready.
We are still home. We are talking about...
So this is our country. Let us build it.
We are looking at Edo State forthcoming local
government election. Yes, let me quickly go there. Thank you.
I'll come back to you. Let's come to Comrade Young. Comrade Young, the governor is actually leaving next year. And to an extent, this House of Assembly election with the Edo State House of Assembly, we saw how he threw his support behind his party members. Should we see the same thing play out? As he's leaving office, he doesn't have anything to lose.
Well, as a party, he will want to defend his political party. And like the House of Assembly, it is somebody who was probably somewhere else that wouldn't witness what happened. I voted, I stayed there. If you tell me there was no voter apathy after the presidential election, then you are not a Nigerian. And you were not present there. Because not only went out to vote. I witnessed from other polling units and local government the drop in the voters turnout. Now, when you have a rerun, there is bound to be mass mobilization. But if somebody will wake up and raise up his hand and say the election we had is free and fair, I will say rightly, the person don't fear God. Because we all know what went wrong, whether you are in one party or the other. I'm not speaking on behalf of any party, but I want to say, as far as the governor is concerned, he will do all he can to ensure that the party, the program of his political party, is showcased. And so that is what happened as far as the House of Assembly is concerned. Whether somebody is ganging up here and there, it's not the issue. The issue is that he is the governor. And having the privilege of being a governor and House of Assembly that he's going to work with, you can't expect him to take a pillow and go home and lie down. No, definitely he will come and defend his party programs and support his own House of Assembly member. You can't expect him to go there and support another political party. So if somebody is saying that you are just not being fair to the system, then as far as the next election is concerned, the local government, you expect the governor to come out to support his political party. For instance now, you can't expect a governor for the next 1 year that he will be in the office, he will be having one other political party here and there as a chairman who will not want to implement his political party agenda. He will not want that. So he will want to make sure his political party retain power as far as the local government is concerned. So it is what is happening. But until the system is fine-tuned, we cannot have a transparent system where everyone can go and sleep knowing fully well that your vote will count.
Okay, Christopher Ojekere.
Yes.
Let's quickly take it from this angle. So there are speculations that they might end up postponing the date of the election till the end of this tenure. Talking about the tenure of the Godwin Obaseki's administration. Could that assertion be true?
People like speculations in this place. Are you asking me to respond to the speculations?
Yes.
I'm not to respond to the speculations. I'm to respond to what is on white paper and in the public domain.
Okay.
The election has been shifted from May to September. Yes. It was announced by EDO, and the white paper was delivered to that effect. So why would we leave that one and be taking the speculations? It is natural for people to speculate. For people to speculate, especially in an ungoverned society like us. And I mean ungoverned. We are ungoverned in moral principles, and we are governed in the use of language. In fact, at the point just I was afraid for you because the way Collins was doing it. I was happy I wasn't sitting too close to it. I'm used to there are speculations. Speculations shouldn't count.
Of course.
Collins gave us a really good lecture on the system. If you listen to him, he gave us a good lecture on the system. And he was trying to tell you that that's the system for now. But I also know that he knows what should be the ideal. So we are trying to pursue the ideal. And the way to go for that ideal is to stay with white papers. If the governor have said, or EDO have said, for certain reasons, we cannot conduct the election now. We look at it, is it within the ambit of the law, of the Electoral Act? If it is, to postpone the election to certain times, we analyze on that. So I believe that the elections will be conducted. I believe that primaries have already been done, by some political parties. I also believe that every government will want to leave that legacy when he's leaving. And I agree with my colleague that it will be foolish, whether in the America, whether in America or in Britain, it will be foolish for any president or governor not to push. It means the governor or the president does not believe in his own policies. You must push for the interest. That's the meaning of political party and power, political power. You must push for your policy, continuity of your policies, if you believe in your own policies. And the other way to do that is to ensure that elected officials are from your party, and that they understand the policies of your manifesto, and they are willing to push it. The opposition party should contest for it, not fight for it. And they should come up with superior policies. The superior policy should not be built around the attack of the personality of the governor. It won't win elections because people are not as stupid as people think. What wins election is superior argument based on development, based on superior policy blueprints, based on superior manifesto, and actual acts that people can relate to. I can sit down here and reel out to you Obaseki's achievement. If I'm going to campaign tomorrow, that's what I will use. That's what I used in 2020, based on facts. Okay. I go physically to cities, and when I'm talking about them, I'm talking about the things I have seen, and people cannot argue with me. I know people even in the government at local level that followed me to the industrial hub in Sapele Road, and we were shocked that there was such a thing in existence. And I had known that and campaigned with it in 2020. The industrial hub, for instance. So there are so many things to campaign with. He shouldn't be ashamed at all of his administration. He has so many things to campaign with. Tangible things, reforms, educational achievements, and so on and so forth. It is natural and expected that he should do so. And that's what he's going to do. Yes.
Now, coming to you, Collins Amadi, what should we see from the APC in the forthcoming election?
Only time will tell. The reason being that this is the third time the state government, in collaboration with ESSEC, have packed our people out. And a week to, they will postpone election. So that is why you have seen, even where they've announced it, everywhere is so cold. Nobody is really finding it funny. Because they will go all out again, because there's no election without spending money. They will go all out again, start knocking in the door of everybody. Oh, I brought Shinab and Cola. Please, I want to run for election. And after 5 months, trust our electorate. They will ask you call that time. You not come back. So you have to start going and going. Probably, maybe they want to wait 2 weeks too, and really find out the sincerity. Because it's two things. We are not very much aware that any of this action has been placed in the budget. For example, because it's a capital project, you cannot conduct an election without being budgeted for. So we have not also gotten details really of how you don't just wake up and pick money from SS account or from one account to conduct an election. It's a capital project that must go through legislature. So we really don't know how they are doing it. Maybe it's going to be the normal, usual norm that Nigerian system is known for. And at the end of the day, they will say go to court. And maybe you go to court. That is why today, House of Assembly member that were sworn in, 4 years have just complete. They said, let you people go to court. And the court has kept the document under their foot for over 4 years. So people are crying foul and asking the election petition tribunal that they must be speedo, they must speedo. Is one man's food today, is another man's poison tomorrow. Now, why would people be crying when you cannot quickly hold on to the basic? Now, because there are precedent already over the time that is going on. When it suits you, it's fine. When it doesn't suit you, it's not fine. So Nigerians must not be sentimental. We must not be sentimental. If we want to do things, we must face it holistically. Local government election is coming. For example, before now, local government, those who want to contest or party usually get subvention from either state treasury, as it were. I don't know if there is any law that have abated that or completely eliminated it. Now, what has the state government put in place to political parties, you know, as a way of the law?
All right, I'll come back to you because we are rounding up now. On the strength of this,
you know, they allow me to finish my...
Who should now conduct the election? Is it the INEC or state electoral body?
Well, based on law, it is the EDSEC that's supposed to conduct it.
Okay.
But while we were in the system, the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees did advocate through the autonomy that INEC should be conducting all local government elections across the country. That has been our position. Why? We believe that while having a duplicated functions in the states, instead of one body conducting the election. So it is the same thing that affected the autonomy that is affecting the EDSEC. Because if there was autonomy, and like he mentioned earlier, the state houses of assembly really approved it, these were some of the things that are supposed to come with that autonomy. Okay. It's in that same constitutional review. But however, what we have now is EDSEC. So that is what we are doing, we are working with now. But ideally, it's supposed to be INEC conducting both the presidential, the state, and the local government. But what we have now is EDSEC. And so if that is what the law permits, then we'll go on with it.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm afraid this is where we'll be drawing the curtain for today's segment. It has been an awesome time with you guys. Thank you so much, Comrade Young. Of course, Comrade Amadi. Each time you have Comrade Amadi around, there will always be vibration. So I like that spirit. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you.
The last time I had Comrade Amadi, someone viewed my status and he was like, who is this man that is always fighting in sex?
Okay,
Thank you, Comrade. Of course, my uncle, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Or J.K. Christopher. All right, we'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll join the Abuja Network Center, where we'll be wrapping up on TMI Monday edition. Don't go nowhere.